of what other people feel. So tanggang rasa means giving the space to the existence of others, giving the space that others need to be respected. So tanggang rasa is more on the internal feeling that others need to be recognized for their existence. While gotong royong refers to the in-group solidarity, which is a very good understanding from your point of view, tanggang rasa is actually more on the internal capacity to recognize the existence of others and the way others need to be given space to express themselves. So in the Indonesian context, tanggang rasa is sometimes paradoxical. To tell you frankly, so this is my frank statement. So it is sometimes problematic. In positive sense, tanggang rasa refers to pushing our ego and try to recognize and acknowledge the existence of others. That's in a positive sense. But in a negative sense, sometimes tanggang rasa means that letting others do whatever they want, and we just try to push our own feeling, although the feeling is the feeling of discomfort. So sometimes this kind of tanggang rasa makes Indonesian people less direct to express what they are feeling, because we need to be tanggang rasa, give the space for others. In a negative sense, tanggang rasa can mean that we try to surpass the respect to others beyond our own feeling. We let others do so. Sometimes in Indonesia, please visit Indonesia sometime. During weekend, for example, during weekends, or let's say there is a ceremony, a marriage ceremony, and the marriage ceremony used a very loud sound system, and all the neighbors can hear, can listen to this, and the people around do nothing, and it's okay, although it probably disturb or interfere their sleep, their nap, because we need to have tanggang rasa. What if we are at the same position with them? So we give the space to others too. So it's more like empathy, while gotong royong more like mutual cooperation.
Then there is a second aspect to that question, namely, we've now talked about these notions as Indonesian concepts, but in your description of the Indonesian context, you also mentioned that there are about 1,000 quote-unquote ethnic groups. So how general are these notions in Indonesia?
So anyone from outside Japanese here? Okay. I think everyone in Indonesia from different ethnicities understand the value, the core value of mutual cooperation and giving the space for the existence of others, tanggang rasa, the empathy, but the implementation or the value itself is already localized and expressed in different way, but the value is rooted embedded. I don't know, maybe in I think in Minangkabau, I think if is there somebody from Minangkabau? Kira-kira, okay, sorry. What is the equivalent concept of gotong royong? Berjalan serandan? Berjalan?
Berjalan bersama.
Berjalan bersama.
Berjalan beririang.
Yeah, berjalan bersama, berjalan beririang means that we need to keep the harmony with others as the representation of solidarity. I think in Makassar traditions, in Bugis Makassar, although it is not 100% similar, correct me, the Vice Ambassador, if I make the mistake. There is the concept of siri nakace. Siri refers to, let's say, the in-group solidarity, while Sirik Napate refers to the importance of inbound in-group solidarity and maintaining the dignity of the group. So in positive sense, that refers to the close relationship among the members of the group, although it might be translated into different or more negative ways. But if I could assure you, this kind of gotong royong and the essence of the values of gotong royong and tenggang rasa is already in the 1,000 ethnicities, but that might be translated in different way. You are going to see how gotong royong and how tenggang rasa they are coming to this place. And when they come here, that's a part of gotong royong.
So actually, what I'm trying to do is give you a topic for a very interesting paper.
That is the second homework.
And I would very much like to read that. Now, okay, start something. Okay, a different area. You already mentioned, the way that you were trying to deal with your positionality in your research, because your positioning in your research is not just as an ethnographer, not even just an ethnographer who does participant observation. No, you are very much embedded in the context that you are investigating. And there is also such a thing as autoethnography. Now, so my question would be, would it have been helpful to you maybe to interpret what you were doing, not only just as ethnographic, with all the efforts that it takes to distance yourself enough to remain objective, but at the same time to also use this as some kind of an exercise of autoethnography, questioning how you would be handling the practices that you are actually describing. Would that have been helpful, or would it have been further confusing? So.
Another question about positionality.
Yeah.
That is the risk of doing research of our own institution.
Yes.
Whether I am fully an ethnographer, or in the area of ethnography, or maybe in the liminal area, or in the borderline of ethnography or autoethnography. If I could have the defense on what I have done so far, may I say that what I have done is a reflective ethnography instead of autoethnography, assuming that I do not involve myself as a part of the subject of the research, because I do not research my own beliefs and. Or maybe I missed something about the author.
But you say that you were also teaching that course of inferential reading, right?
Okay.
So the same course, that is also the topic of your research, where you did, of course, your ethnography with the other 4 teachers, but you were also teaching that course yourself.
Yeah.
So doesn't this necessarily come into your interpretation of what is happening there? Or?
Okay. Let me try to clarify that I had the experience in the previous academic years of teaching similar course, but not at the same year or intake with the other 4 teachers. So I have ever taught that kind of course several years previously, but not in the same year with the research participants. So to some parts, that's maybe an autoethnography when I try to question my own principles or my own beliefs. There is a tension, of course. Sometimes I feel that I lean too much or becoming too critical if what they did or what they believe clash my own principles or what I have previously done. Or maybe I am too affirmative because I need to, sometimes they are my colleagues and I have ever felt the difficulties, the challenges they have. But with the, in this kind of intersection between whether I am too affirmative or whether I am too critical, then I need to come back to the principles of the grounded theory, and I will never try to impose what I have ever experienced or what I believe, and I will let the data speak by itself. So I am not considering that I am, maybe in the future, if you give me the second homework of doing the autoethnography, that maybe that one, that if I could say what I have been doing here is the ethnographic, with some ethnographic principles and more on the reflective ethnography, if that is possible, or in the borderline between the two disciplines.
Well, it's clear that you were very conscious about what you were doing. That's the main thing here, of course. Yes. So, well, okay, so, no, I'd better stop because I have another question which is also still far-ranging.
Thank you. But I want to start with some praise because Martin clearly also enjoyed reading your dissertation. He stresses that your thesis constitutes a very interesting contribution to the academic research on citizen education on the one hand, and literature and language education on the other, and he says it provides a fascinating and very rich qualitative ethnographic look inside classrooms where lecturers are expected not only to teach their students the necessary language skills but also to promote values such as tolerance. He appreciates the fact that you address this topic in both an engaged and critical way. He says the reader is convinced of the potential of literature in democratic education, but also gets a nuanced view of all the challenges and difficulties associated with efforts in this direction. But now I'm going to switch to his questions. And as you know, he focuses on the issue of conflict. He says there's a point to be made about the status of conflict in the theoretical underpinnings of the research project. He says, when I looked at the mentions of conflict throughout the thesis, the emphasis is primarily on the avoidance of conflict and the importance of harmony. And he says, in conflict studies and the praxis of conflict transformation, conflict tends to be seen as an integral and unavoidable part of the human condition. And he wants to stress that although conflicts are often painful and destructive, if handled well, they can also result in social change and transformation, also from a critical perspective. And this leads him to his two questions, which are kind of related, and that's why I'm going to give them, two of them at the same time to you, so then you can handle them together. First of all, he says, according to you, is harmony the goal of tolerance education? Should it be the goal of tolerance education to avoid conflict? Or is there space in your conception of tolerance education for teaching and learning about the skills needed to live with differences and being able to deal constructively with differences and conflicts? What might be possible pitfalls of a strong emphasis on harmony when tolerance is discussed in educational contexts? That's his first question. So what are potential pitfalls of exclusively focusing on the avoidance of conflict? And then second, more empirically, he says some of the lecturers in the study talked about conflict. Could you elaborate on whether there are more references in your data to conflict? Did you ask respondents what their views on conflict? Were there conflicts in the classroom you observed? Did students talk about conflicts they experienced, for example, between different approaches to religion? Or is harmony a shared goal among learners? So these are his two questions with some sub-questions, but well, I suggest that you try to deal with them together if possible.
Okay. If I didn't misunderstand, the first question is harmony the goal of the goal of tolerance education. In my point of view, not necessarily. When harmony is defined as pressing differences, it will create another problem, because what we need to do to the students is not to surpass, or is not to eliminate the conflicts, but how to manage the conflict and how to view differences in a constructive way. So what the students need to do in the critical point of view is that what the teachers need to equip the students in terms of critical pedagogy is not on how they try to reduce differences and to create the harmony. We need to live with differences. We need to live the conflict, and conflict should be seen as a space for growth. So when conflict is seen not only as something which is very dangerous, students should be given more skills on how to navigate that kind of conflict, on how to live with diversity, and how to make conflict and diversity not a source of peace breaking, but a source of personal growth. That people can live with the conflict, and we need conflict to manage. We need differences that we can navigate, that we need that kind of skills. And in the classroom, is there any other skills that the teachers need to do? Yes, but not the skill to reduce differences or to make them feel insecure of being different from others. We need to educate, teachers need to educate the students that this kind of conflict or these kind of differences are the inevitable nature of human beings, and the skills that we need, that teachers need to do to the students is how to manage these differences, to see that differences and conflict more constructively. So it should be the space for them to live with that kind of conflict. May I know the second question?
Yeah, the second question, but I think you partly answered it already. He asked whether there are more references in your data to conflict, and especially did students talk about conflicts they experienced, and is there a kind of harmony for them, a shared goal among these learners?
Yes, but not in a
So
deliberate
first
way.
you had the perspective of the teacher, and now it's the perspective of the learners.
Yeah, they discussed that, but not in a deliberate and in explicit way.
Yeah.
It just flow naturally as the students and teachers discuss about. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, one of the topic is the new blood. When in Chika's class, one of the literary work discussed is the new blood. It talks about the Islamophobia. And also when talking about the honor killing in Pakistan and in the other literary work in Chika's class, so they talk about conflict, but how the students talk and perceive about the conflict is not the theme of my research. So, but I think I can consider that maybe in the list of the homework that I did. I have so many homeworks to do.
Okay, let's stick with that. I think Martin would be happy with your answer, because I think he also wanted to suggest that conflict has a potential for personal growth. So thank you very much. Okay, now we finished this part of the defense, but since this is a public defense, I'd like to ask whether anyone of the audience would like to ask a question to Miftah, but mind the question has to be related to the dissertation.
I have one left.
Okay, please.
Yeah, question but not questioning.
Yeah. You mentioned that there is a lack of implementation guidelines, and if you have this, then do you think that this will restrain the innovation of the teacher to be more what I know innovative in doing teaching is that most of you know Indonesian, right? Most of implementation guidance is very strict and they cannot go outside this. How do you see this implementation guidance will have still developing conflict, debate, and having something that allows students to grow?
Okay, thank you. In terms of systemic and structured policy, the presence of clear guidelines is very important because it refers to the existence of streamlining. It refers to the coherence of policy among different governmental tiers. I am not worried about the possibility of some individualization as a part of agency, because even if there is guidelines, teachers have the agency. Teachers have their own decisions, and teachers have their own way of understanding and interpreting even the clearest guidelines. But when individualization or fragmentized practice is because of the result of the absence of clear guidelines, then that will be that can create unsystematic and unsystemic effort in achieving the national goal of teaching religious tolerance in the educational context. So don't worry, Bapak. Even if we have the clear guidelines, teachers still have the agency, and but the agency itself is not because of the absence of clear guidelines. We are still very innovative as human beings. But in the framework of policy streamlining, in the framework of let's say the system, policy system, I think the absence of this pillar will mean that there is no coherence in the actualization or the implementation of the policy itself. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, another question?
I'm just curious. Thank you. The subject, are you focusing on in Islamic school, or what I'm saying is the research on this subject only focus on Islamic school?
Yes, on Islamic university.
Not to compare to the others.
No. Don't inspire the supervisors to give me the fourth homework to in the next research. Got the in terms of the students, then the third homework, then the borderline of ethnography and autoethnography, and then comparative studies with other universities, and more homeworks are waiting.
Okay. Okay, seems. One more question, yes?
First, I want to congratulate Mas Miftah for the presentation. It was really nice and interesting. I do not have background in pedagogy or linguistics, however, I enjoyed it very much. So this question probably is not so much on the study methodology or neither of the aim of the study, just out of curiosity. Based on your observation, how English language teaching affect the religious tolerance of the student? Because you mentioned earlier in the introduction that there is low level of tolerance in higher education students. So it is also probably not the aim of the study to measure it, but how is your view on that, and based on your observation during this research?
I want to answer your question indirectly, but very briefly. I believe that education is the most transformative way of changing people, but at the same time, the slowest. So I believe that when English language teachers collectively have the same concern, not only to improve the students' language skill, but also to nurture the spirit of tolerance, there might come, I don't know, 5 years from now, 10 years, or even after I pass away, but I still believe that while this is conducted in a systemic, collective way, there will be changes, and that's how education works. So we believe in the spirit of education, in changing people, but because this is not a political movement, this is an educational movement. This is the most effective, everlasting, but that is through evolutionary, not revolutionary results, not through revolution, but through evolution. So when I come back to your question, how effective is that? We never know. But we believe that it will work. It works sometimes, and we have to be very optimistic that Indonesia will be better in the future.
This seems like a very nice conclusion. So,
Can I add just one comment? When
Provide the nice word at the end of my
when you learn English, right, Pak Miftah, you make a door open to all things. When we are in Indonesia, of course, we are katak dalam tempurung is more under our home. You don't learn more. Now you learn English, right? And this teaching make people open to tolerance or intolerance. Can be both. And how this teaching can go more to tolerance way than to more intolerance. You know now fake news, you know true news, but we don't know which one is fake, which one is true. How this teaching will avoid this kind of intolerance.
It's crossing the border then. Okay. Can you make the question more direct or
Yeah, when we are Indonesian, we don't speak English. We don't teach. We don't learn English. Then we are in our own environment, right? And now we know English, and this student can read or can watch things in English that can bring tolerance more, or even can bring intolerance. And how in this teaching, this process, this intolerance, you make your student aware that this is something, there is a risk there.
Okay.
So
What I want to say, I could not go further to that point. But what I would like to say is, in line with the spirits of critical pedagogy, that any teachers bear the same responsibility to nurture the student's character, to develop the student's character, whatever the subjects, making the students become a better global citizens is not the responsibility only of the teachers of civic education and religious studies. So that is the idea that I would like to, that is the big message that I would like to carry in my research, that even if English as a foreign language, even if English course or English subject focus more on, let's say, communicative skills or linguistic repertoire or anything related to language, but English language teachers, not only because of the mandate from the policy, not only because of the current trends of intolerance, but also we bear the responsibility to make the word into a better and more peaceful word. So we bear that kind of responsibility, whoever we are, even the English teachers. So what if we already understand English? What if the people then already know English? Can they become more tolerant or intolerant because of their language proficiency? Then of course there is no guarantee, but at least when people know the language, or whoever they are, with good or bad English language proficiency, when they are standing in front of the class, when they teach the students, whatever the subject they have, even from the smallest effort they can, they need to pay attention about the global issues like the religious tolerance.
Okay, once again, this seems like a nice conclusion. So I suggest we close this part of the defense. The jury will withdraw now for the deliberation. You needn't run away because we will come back soon for the proclamation of the results.